Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to give it a moment or two as I see our participant number is quickly climbing. I hope everyone is having a lovely day or evening, wherever you might be in the world right now, tuning in. So welcome. Oh, we're still climbing here. Our participants are past 100. So this is really exciting to see so many of you here today. I'm so thankful you're spending time here, learning a little bit more about Teachers College, Columbia University, a place I am immensely proud to be a part of and excited to share with you. My name is Ashley Blasland. I am an Associate Director of Admission here at Teachers College, and I have been in the Office of Admission here for 8 years, if you can believe it. I liaise with the Counseling and Clinical Psychology Department. So that, you might see my name associated with those events and those programs if that is your program of interest. But otherwise, I'm here to help any of you in any way that I can. So I want to officially welcome everyone to our webinar on crafting the ideal TC application for United States applicants or domestic applicants. So per the title, the information I'm going to share over the next hour is specific to Teachers College. So if you're applying to programs at multiple institutions, it really is best to reach out to those schools or those offices of admission directly to learn what their protocols and practices are for their application processes. And also per the title, this specific session is directed towards domestic applicants. We do have the exact same session actually geared towards international applicants. So if that's you, I definitely recommend viewing that session instead. We actually just had it this morning. It's okay if you missed it. We will be getting the recording up on the website very soon. So yeah, that's just a little bit about what our session will cover. We are home to over 100 programs in the areas of psychology, education, and health. So I do want to mention we're not going to be going into the nitty-gritty of program specifics today, but today, again, will be a focus on the admission process in general and ways you can think about strengthening your own application to Teachers College specifically. So we have a really large group of attendees, which I'm excited about. Questions are definitely welcome. However, I will likely go through the entire presentation first, and then whatever time we have left, I will do my best to answer some questions at that point. So I want to direct everyone's eyes to the Q&A tool. You'll see it likely at the bottom of your toolbar on your screen. Go ahead and click that now. And just to warm it up, why don't if you feel comfortable, say hello, let me know where you're connecting from today and what program you are interested in applying to at Teachers College. And I will wait a moment as those responses come through. All right, see lots of people typing. Wonderful, so we have students here from Atlantic City, Cambridge, Massachusetts. I'll actually be there very soon for recruitment. Let's see where else. Long Island, New York, Manhattan, Chicago, San Francisco. We're traveling there very soon as well. Maine, one of my favorite places in the US. Wonderful. Oh, wow. Mexico City, Westchester, Brooklyn. And applicants here are interested in all sorts of programs like clinical psych, school psychology, applied linguistics, measurement and evaluation, counseling, lots of teaching programs, international education. So this is wonderful. If there weren't so many of you, I would do my best to list everyone, but hopefully that gives you an idea of the variety of applicants we have, as well as the programs that we offer here, just a sneak peek. I will mention that I am getting your questions, your comments through the Q&A tool, but you won't be able to see each other's. You can also send in an anonymous question if you prefer. So again, during the session, if you think of a burning question, feel free to add it through the Q&A toolbar, but I likely won't actually look at it or respond to it until the end of the session. One other housekeeping note is that this presentation is being recorded. So if you have to leave early or you would like to revisit the content, that's no problem. You can certainly email us at admission@tc.columbia.edu. We'll be happy to share with you a recording of the session once it is ready for your eyes. All right, so with all that being said, let's move into the beginning of the session. So the goal of this session, I'm going to do my best to demystify the TC application process for you all. We want to be transparent. We want everyone to submit the best application possible to the program of their interest at TC. We are rooting for you. So that is the goal of this session, is to really open up that transparency and, hopefully help you out a little bit as you're thinking about applying to TC. So we will be providing tips on how to best present yourself to the admission committee. And of course, I'll do my best to answer some questions at the end of the session. So to kick it off, first you might be thinking about our community and who are we, what are we like, how can you be a great candidate for the community of TC, or community of change makers, as we like to call it. So TC does have over 100 programs, as I mentioned, and our student body is comprised of people with extremely diverse experiences. So there's not one ideal TC student or TC applicant. We get that question a lot. How can I be the ideal TC student? There are many ways that could look. So instead, what we'll focus on here are some common qualities among our students that make them really successful at Teachers College. And we hope that you can think about that when putting together your application. So we have students here who are dedicated and hardworking. They are passionate about their field. They want to be in class. They want to learn. They're not afraid to be challenged. They're really passionate about learning and showing up to do that. So they're putting their best efforts in. They also have a genuine academic and professional interest in the field of study. So that kind of goes along with why they're dedicated and hardworking. They have an appreciation and a fit with the mission and values of Teachers College and of their program of interest. So we very much value social justice here, inclusion, equity, access, making change, breaking down barriers. These are things that drive our community of change makers every day. And so students who also value these goals and missions will benefit most from our program and will really align with the heart of their program. There should also be an appropriate level of experience for your desired program. So this can surely vary. So you want to make sure you know what your program expectations are. Some programs absolutely welcome students from all backgrounds. And some programs are meant to be advanced steps for students who are already at a certain level of experience academically or professionally. So there's a place to check for that information, what is expected or required to apply. And we'll be going over that in just a few slides. Also, you're going to want some clearly defined future goals. So any program you're applying to will really want to know and understand where you see yourself after the program and how they can help you get there. So now that you have an understanding of, what sort of attributes define a TC student, a successful TC student, I'd like to take a moment to address our method of application review, which is also really important to this process. So we have a holistic review process. What does that mean? That means we really balance all components of somebody's application quite equally as much as we can in the process. All completed applications are reviewed in the context of all documents submitted. Documents are not viewed in isolation at all. It's in context always. Context is very important to us. There's no cutoff GRE minimum score. You won't see GPA minimums. We don't use these as filtering mechanisms. In fact, we're, for the most part, programs are very much against and very open to students from different academic backgrounds and skill sets. Students at TC don't fit into a cookie cutter mold of perfect scores, perfect grades. That's something I've been touching on. And again, each application is considered based on the applicant's specific situation, employment, life circumstances, anything else you might share in your application, which we'll talk about how to do so. It's also considered based on the context of other applications being reviewed for the given program at the given time. So that can vary by year. We have different application pools every year, as you can imagine. We do believe this model of application review builds programs that reflect the diversity of populations being served by our graduates and also enriches the learning experience of our students. Not only that, it also benefits classroom and program experience. It enhances your competency as a student, as a professional, and hopefully as a person, an individual in a diverse society. So this session is going to do a deep dive into each of these application components that you see listed before you. But just to kind of put them all out there very straightforwardly so you can all jot down notes, this is what is required of every single one of you to apply, no matter what program you decide to apply to. So first, you will all need your online application and your fee, which is $65 to apply. You will need your resume or CV. You will need your academic transcripts. You will need at least two, possibly 3 letters of recommendation. This is something that could vary by program. You will need your statement of purpose. And there's a potential you will need supplemental materials. That means additional materials that are required beyond this list that I'm showing you right now. So I want to mention a few key items about our online application that you can really successfully submit an application to one of our programs. So just a few key notes first. One, you can only apply to one program at a time. So be sure you've researched the programs and you know which program is the program for you. We know that's hard because there's a lot of great programs here, but you can only apply to one program at a time. Secondly, this is a self-managed application process. So you must know your deadlines. We have received by deadlines, not postmark deadlines. That means everything has to be in your file, in your electronic file, at the latest on the date of your deadline. If something is in the mail on the way to us and it arrives to us late, there is a big chance that you will not be reviewed. So very important to know your deadlines and manage your application process. Use a frequently checked email address. We will be sometimes reaching out to you, maybe to ask you something, maybe something was submitted unclearly and we have a follow-up question or request. Very important that we can get in touch with you, and we'll only really do so by email. So whatever email address you create your account using should be one you check frequently throughout your application process. When you're uploading documents, particularly a resume, for instance, you want to, as much as possible, upload PDF documents that will preserve the formatting of your materials. It's the worst thing is when something looks very pretty in front of you and you submit it and then the formatting gets a little off. We won't know that. We'll just see the format being off. So we certainly don't want that to happen to you. So PDF does help with that. You'll also want to proof your application and all of your uploaded materials before submitting your application. You cannot edit or change any part of your application after you press the submit button. So keep that in mind. Even if you notice there's a big mistake, you accidentally uploaded the wrong statement of purpose, that's the worst thing that could happen, but unfortunately you will not be able to access your application or to have anyone edit it on behalf of you in my office. We cannot touch it after you've submitted it. The $65 application fee is due after you submit. So once you submit the application, you will then be prompted to submit the fee electronically. And I do want to make note of our application fee waiver process, if this applies to you. We offer application fee waivers to applicants who were formerly Pell eligible, as well as those who have participated in specific organizations affiliated with Teachers College. Such examples are City Year, AmeriCorps, Peace Corps, there's many more. You will be asked on the application itself if you have served with any of these organizations, and then you'll be required to provide the email address for a contact person at the organization. Other types of fee waivers, these requests are reviewed on a case-by-case basis. They're limited, they're not guaranteed, but to submit a request, you'll want to email admission@tc columbia.edu, and I'll be sharing that in the chat towards the end of the session. You'll email them for more information. They will likely ask you to provide some documentation to supplement your fee waiver request. All right, so as I mentioned in the previous slide, our application process is self-managed, so knowing the appropriate deadline is essential when you are applying to TC. Deadlines certainly do vary by program, but there are some standard deadlines you'll see often appearing. So these are some of our general deadlines you'll see often appearing. Again, I can't promise they will be your program's deadlines, which is why we ask that you check it out on our website. And I'll be showing you exactly where to look and how to do that. But here you see some priority deadlines for summer and fall. For doctoral programs, December 1st is very often our priority deadline. Sometimes it's the only deadline. And for master's programs, quite often the priority deadline is January 15th. For spring, quite often that deadline is November 1st for spring applications. And I will make a note here, not all programs have spring entry, but there are some that do. So you're hearing me say priority deadline, final deadline. What's the difference? So anytime a program has more than one deadline, you always want to aim for the first deadline, which we call the priority deadline. This puts you in the best consideration for admission. That's when we have all the spaces in the program open. Many times they're very competitive programs, so you want to apply when there's the best chance that you can be considered for admission. There's also a better chance you'll be considered for scholarships that you're eligible for by applying by the priority deadline. And finally, you'll be finding out your decision much earlier. So if you apply by that January 15th priority deadline, you'll likely hear back from us in mid to late March. Which hopefully gives you a lot of time to plan for the following summer or fall. If you apply after the priority deadline, you might not hear back from us until May or June, and it just depends on when you submit and the progress of the program's review. I do want to just mention, even though this is a session for domestic applicants and not so much geared towards international applicants, I do still want to mention that there are some deadlines that are important to note if you are an international applicant who happens to be with us today. And in order to provide enough time for visa processing, applicants who require a visa to attend TC must submit their application by one of the three deadlines listed here. For spring, October 15th, for summer, February 1st, and for fall, June 1st. But the big note that I want to make here is that if your program has an earlier deadline than the international student deadline listed here, you must abide by the program deadline. So if you're applying to a doctoral program with a December 1st deadline, for fall, you do have to abide by the December 1st deadline rather than the June 1st deadline, because that's much later. We can answer any questions anyone has about your program's deadline or, what deadline applies to you. You can absolutely just reach out to our office. We'd rather clarify that for you than have you risk, assuming the wrong deadline. So feel free to reach out to us via email and we can clarify that for you. Okay, so let's talk a bit about the resume. So what is its function? Why do we ask for a student's resume when they're applying to TC? Well, first of all, it provides the backstory of your journey until now. So it really lays down a foundation for us to understand you, and it highlights your professional, your educational, and other relevant experiences and accomplishments that you've had in your life. The format should be a clean layout. It should be very organized visually. Please be conscious of your font choice. Don't get creative with the font choice. We really want to just be able to read it clearly. So we recommend Times New Roman is a great font, Arial, something along those lines. A resume should be an appropriate length. So 1 to 2 pages is a pretty good estimate to aim for. Obviously, this depends on your own experience. If you're someone with a CV, we absolutely do take CVs as well. So you just want to remember to be selective about the information you're providing us. Ask yourself, is this information relevant to the program I'm applying to? I'll say it again here. It's ideal to upload your resume or your CV as a PDF to preserve the formatting. And for academic details, you'll want to list the institutions you've attended, your graduation year, and any additional information you feel is relevant. So relevant coursework or research for the program you're applying to that you feel they might want to see you've done. If you are, submitting a CV, you might have prior publications, presentations, conferences, notable honors, and research on a CV. If you have those things in your past, then that might be an opportunity for you to share that on a CV rather than a resume. So how to present this academic information on your resume? Well, here's an example of kind of what this should look like. This particular example comes from a student who is an applicant to the Teaching of English program. You'll see that their education information is clear and easy to find. You can immediately find the student's educational history, the institutions they attended, and when they attended them, as well as their academic major, date of graduation, and degree. Also of note, the student decided to include a summary of qualifications, which is completely optional. That is not something we require, but some students like to do that. So how to present professional information on your resume is important to know. We want to see the essential details. So clear dates and clear type of experience. Was it a volunteer experience, a professional experience, like a full-time job, a part-time job? Was it an experience you had as a student in a student organization? You'll want to prioritize relevant experiences to the program you're applying to. You really want to make those stand out and highlight those on your resume. Also, you'll want to demonstrate your transferable skills, especially if you're coming from a less relevant background and you're kind of making a transition to a new path with your program that you're applying to. So transferable skills are skills that, can really be applicable across different experiences. And these are tasks and responsibilities that you can include in bullet points on your resume. Some transferable skill examples are heavy reading or writing instances that you've had maybe in a job or in a leadership position. Have you had experience training or mentoring others? How is your attention to detail? Have you been in a front-facing position? Have you, demonstrated customer service skills? All of that good stuff. So those are all examples. There's many, many more. And you can think about that when crafting your resume. So this is the same student's resume. This person has a mix of volunteer, internship, and professional experiences, and the dates are clearly indicated here. So you'll notice it's easy to find this information about the place of employment, their position held, and the length of their employment, as well as concise bullet point details about each position, which is really helpful to see. So moving along to academic transcripts. So what's the purpose of your transcript in the admission process? Well, it provides us with a primary glimpse into your academic performance and, of course, your educational history, your trajectory as a student. It gives us a comprehensive review of courses that you've taken, of the grades you've received from those courses, the institutions you've attended, if it's been more than one. It also can show us some relevant coursework if that's applicable to the program you're applying to. Some examples where that would be important would be like a teacher education program for math education or science education. They need to see a certain amount of credits of content areas in the subject you're applying to. There's like an example of our economics and education program. They're really looking for evidence of strength in quantitative courses. So they would be using the transcripts to also see if you've demonstrated strength in certain areas like a stats program, for instance. Grades and GPA are not the sole determining factor of your admission decision. And that speaks to our holistic review process that I've already kind of mentioned. So what transcripts should be included? We actually need all of your transcripts that you've either received a degree from that institution, or if you've taken any courses for credit, even if you haven't received a degree from that institution. So we need 3 things. These are the 3 key things we're looking for: course titles, number of credits, and final grades. These 3 things must be visible for all post-secondary coursework. That includes undergraduate coursework, graduate coursework, non-degree coursework, all of that for credit. We do have students who are in progress of their degrees. So for example, we have seniors in college who are applying to our programs or in their final year of a master's program. That's certainly fine. You can absolutely apply even if you're not finished with your degree yet. It is acceptable for sure, but the transcript that you have submitted for that in-progress coursework must be the most up-to-date version. So if you're sending it at the end of the fall semester, for example, it should include all of your fall classes, even if we can't see the grades for those fall classes yet. It should show your in-progress coursework up-to-date. Everything you have completed prior to the day you submit your application should be reflected on your transcript. So that's something to note. And if you have conferred a degree already, this must be reflected on that institution's transcript. If you do gain admission to Teachers College, which we're rooting for, and if you did, submit any in-progress transcripts as a part of your application, we will require all final transcripts that show all degree conferrals and all grades received in order for you to be allowed to register for classes. So we do follow up and require that information after a student is admitted. And again, all in-progress degrees must be conferred prior to you enrolling at TC. On your transcripts, clarity is important. We need to really clearly see the titles of your courses, the final grades, and the number of credits awarded for each course. Sometimes you'll see a T or a TR for a grade. That's generally shown for like transfer credit coursework. These would not be acceptable to our office for review. We need to actually see the letter grade. So if your home institution transcript has your study abroad coursework on it, but you are looking at it and you only see T's or TRs, for example, listed for your grades, we won't be able to accept that home institution transcript for your study abroad. We would actually require your study abroad transcript in addition to your home institution transcript. Finally, we get the question a lot, official versus unofficial transcript. What exactly is the difference and what do we require? So official transcripts refer to transcripts sent to us directly from your institution that can come electronically or through standard mail in a sealed envelope. Unofficial transcripts are usually scanned and uploaded. So you might have your transcript already in your hand and you can scan it right into your application. It's a copy. We absolutely accept that for the review process. So you're welcome to submit unofficial US transcripts for the application review process. For transcript submission, if you don't have a copy and you have to have your official transcript sent to us, our address for submission can be found on our website in our FAQs, or you can have your institution email us electronic transcripts at tc.columbia.edu. And I'm going to put that in the chat. All right, and I'm seeing just a side note in the chat box, there seem to be a lot of comments and questions, but for anyone who might have submitted a question through the chat box, please resubmit it through the Q&A tool because that's where I'll be looking at the end of the session to answer questions in the order that they're received. All right. So we do accept transcripts through standard mail, through an envelope. Some institutions may only send your transcript that way, but our preferred route is receiving transcripts electronically. So if there's any way that they can be submitted electronically, that will be a much easier process for us. We'll receive it quicker. There won't be as many delays, and it's generally just more effective all around. Again, just another reminder, all transcript submissions must be the most up-to-date versions as of the date you submit your application to TC. And again, if you are admitted to TC and you submitted unofficial transcripts, which we accept during the review process, we at that point of admission will require all of your transcripts in the official version. So even if you submitted all unofficial during the review process and then you're admitted, you will then be required to submit all official transcripts at that point, all final official transcripts, I should say. So here's an example of the ideal format of your undergraduate or graduate school transcript submission for coursework pursued in the United States. You'll want to submit both the front and the back of it. So if you're copying it in, if you're scanning it in, make sure you're doing the front and the back, because oftentimes the back includes a key to interpret the information on your transcript, which we do need. And again, you want to ensure once you scan it in, if you're doing that, that we can clearly see the course titles, the number of credits, and the final grades for all coursework. This will definitely prevent delays in the processing of your application. You'll want to double check. You'll be able to see everything that you upload into your application. So you'll really want to double check it came out clearly. Sometimes students will accidentally submit a blank page because maybe they had it turned around. So you want to make sure everything is there and clear. Otherwise, there could be delays. So what are some other kinds of transcripts you might be asked to submit? And this is only if applicable to your situation. You might be asked to submit study abroad transcripts if the course information is not listed on your home institution transcript, like I mentioned. But if all three items, course titles, grades, and credits, are listed on your home institution transcript, we will not need an additional copy from your international study abroad school. We do require all transfer credit, same rules apply there. Any post-secondary or post-baccalaureate degree coursework, that will be required. If you are here and you did receive an international degree, or if it's an in-progress international degree, we actually don't require transcripts in that case, but we require a course-by-course evaluation from WES or ECE. There's plenty more information about that process on our website, but we're not going to go into that in this particular session today. And if all course titles, letter grades, and credits are included on your home institution transcript, no additional documentation will be necessary. So those are the three key things. So let's chat about letters of recommendation. So our programs require at least 2 letters of recommendation. Some programs might actually require 3. If your program only requires 2, you have the choice to submit a 3rd optional letter of recommendation. But 3 is the maximum number of letters we will accept. So regardless of your program, we will never accept more than 3. What's the function of your letters of recommendation? So these are important. These are a secondary source, another voice about your strengths as an applicant and as a future professional in this field. It tells us more about you in an academic or professional context. It tells us what kind of student you are, what kind of employee you might be, what are ways you contribute in a group setting, either classroom context or professional environment. These are all things that we'd like to know from people that have worked closely with you, who have taught you closely. So who should recommend you? Those who have worked closely with you in an academic, professional, or community service setting. Those are the people you want to be thinking about. Those who know you really well and can speak to your strengths in an academic or professional setting. So what's the difference between a professional recommender and an academic recommender? Well, there is a preference often for academic recommendations. This can vary based on the program. There might be some programs that actually do really prefer at least one of your letters is from a professional reference. So this can vary. This is something to check out, which we'll be talking about how to check into that. But why would some programs and many programs prefer academic references? Well, it's because our academic faculty, academic faculty in general have a strong influence on admission. They prefer to hear from other faculty because we're trying to get to know you as a potential student. So it only makes sense that we would love to hear from somebody who's already seen you in that capacity, who's worked with you and can talk about you and your strengths in the capacity of being a student. Professional references are okay, especially if an academic reference is unavailable or, if the program is more practical in nature and requires many years of experience professionally, then professional references can be acceptable. it's important that you all prepare your recommenders. So you want to spend some time preparing them to craft a graduate school appropriate recommendation letter. So the first thing you want to tell them is to highlight your transferable skills. So we've talked about this a little already, but again, especially those professional references who haven't worked with you in a classroom, they've still seen you in capacities that can help us understand how you might be as a graduate student. So, what's your attention to detail like? How do you meet deadlines? How do you work with others? Have you mentored new colleagues? Have you had to apply critical or nuanced thinking? These are all things that we're very interested in, and that those professional references can certainly tell us, even if they haven't taught you in a classroom. You'll also want to provide your references, your recommenders, with at least a month to really write you a letter. They likely have a lot going on, and the last thing you want to do is not give them enough time to submit a letter for you. You definitely don't want your application to miss a deadline because of a letter of recommendation. So that brings me to my next point, which is you have to make sure your recommenders know what their deadline is. Your deadline is their deadline as well. So make sure that's very clear to them. You might want to share some details about the academic and professional field of study that you are hoping to work in, that you're applying to at TC. If you can even think about sharing your statement of purpose, your resume with them so they can get that context. They can really feel like they understand why you're applying to this program. And make sure they're very clear on the program and the school that you're applying to so that they don't make an error in your letter. And finally, you'll want to encourage them to use a professional email address and letterhead from their school or their organization. That will prevent delays, again, in your application review process. So let's talk about this final component here, the statement of purpose. Although we have a holistic review process and we do really balance application components quite equally when we can, this is the one piece that personally I think can really make or break it at times. This is the most important piece by far. And why do I say that? It's your voice of the application. It's your voice in the whole admission process. This is the element you have control over, and it provides a frame to consider all of the other components of your application. So this is your opportunity to speak directly to the admission committees, the faculty members, everyone reviewing your application. This is your chance to connect with them. So you really want to spend time on this and be thoughtful about what you write and what you put into it. So some things to keep in mind. This should be forward thinking, okay? It should not be a regurgitation of all of your past experiences. Those should have been outlined in your resume, which will be also reviewed. This should be forward thinking. And what do I mean by that? You should be elaborating on your current interests and goals in this field and letting us know what your fit is with our program specifically. So why you? Why TC? And why now? These are the three questions you want to keep in your mind when you're crafting this statement. So why you? This is where you, if anywhere, you can lay down a bit of foundation, a bit of history, but you don't want to let that take over the statement. So you want to lay a foundation about yourself and let us know what you can specifically bring and contribute to this program. Why are you a great applicant for this program at TC? Why TC? And what is it about not only the school, but the program that has attracted you to it? What excites you about this program? Why do you feel this program will benefit you, and how will it bring you to your future professional or academic goals in the future? And why now? Why is this the right time for you to apply to graduate school? Why is this program the next logical step in your academic, personal, or professional trajectory? Can your goals be met with a degree in this field? That's really up to you to share. The faculty and the reviewers all want to make sure you are applying to a program that can really suit your needs and that you will benefit from. And we'll only know that if you explain how and why. So you'll want to show the committee why TC is the right place for you. Show us that you've done your research, you know about this program, and you know why you want to be here. This statement also helps us to assess the strength of your writing, which is important in graduate school. And again, the goal is to determine if you are the appropriate fit for this program at this institution. Keep in mind, all graduate programs vary. So one school might have the resources to accommodate your research interests and another may not, even if they both have programs in, say, clinical psychology. That doesn't mean that they're both programs appropriate for your research interests and your needs as an applicant and a potential student. So do's and don'ts, statement of purpose do's. You do want to follow the requested length limit. It should be about 3 pages, double spaced. It should not be beyond 3 pages, double spaced. 2 to 3 pages is fine. It should be in 10 to 12 point font. Anywhere in there is fine. Easy to read for sure. We want to make sure we're not squinting too hard. So anything below 10 point font, can't do that. You want to strive for clarity and concision. Research your program. Make sure you understand the program. If you have questions, reach out to my office and ask us. We can provide some clarity, we hope. Research through the website. Read the bios of the faculty. Make sure you understand the program you're applying to. It'll be very obvious if you do. And you'll, as I said, demonstrate that you've done your homework and that you understand the program and its faculty members and its curriculum. So you should be customizing each statement of purpose to include information about your desired program of interest. So even if you're applying to multiple schools, that's great. These statements should not be the same. They should all be tailored to their own program of interest at each school. So some don'ts, don't forget to check for spelling and grammar mistakes. That makes a difference. So make sure you are doing your due diligence before you submit. Don't use the same statement for every program you're applying to, as I just mentioned. You don't want to focus entirely on past experiences. We have your resume. You don't need to elaborate for 3 pages on your resume. Not at all. You want to be forward thinking. Why am I excited about this program now, and what will it bring to me in the future down the road? And don't underestimate the importance of this component. This is your chance to demonstrate your interest and fit for your program. All right, so we've talked about all of the standard requirements that everyone here needs to apply, regardless of what program you're applying to, but there are some supplemental materials that may be required depending on the program you're applying to. So this is where it can vary by program. Some examples that you might see that are required for some programs and others not. Academic writing sample. So that's a 10 to 15 page piece of writing, something you've written in a past program, let's say a thesis paper or a research paper. These are examples of when you would need to submit about 10 to 15 pages of what you feel is your best academic writing. Sometimes programs require test scores, such as the GRE. Sometimes programs require additional essays. They might be called the supplemental section of the application, supplemental essays, and they might only be required for that particular program. Most programs require 2 letters of recommendation. Some actually require a 3rd letter of recommendation. Another note about letters of recommendation is some programs will be very specific that you have to have a certain type of letter of recommendation. It might say 2 are required, 1 must be from a professional reference, because you are required to have 2 years of professional experience before applying to this program. So you want to look out for all of those key notes that might be there. Sometimes you'll see an interview listed there on the supplemental materials. Some programs do interview students and do not have that listed. So don't, again, you always want to be checking your email and be, regularly understanding what's going on in your email inbox, because there are programs that might decide they will be conducting interviews and they might reach out to you to set up an appointment for one. So make sure you're very much checking in regularly with your email. And so how will you know if your program, requires any of these supplemental materials? Well, you will want to check our program search page. The link is listed at the bottom of this slide here. You can try logging into it now if you'd like to see what it looks like. I'm also going to show you on the screen. So when you go to this website, this is what you'll be looking at. You will want to actually insert the name of your program, even the subject area. If you want to see all of our psychology programs, for instance, you can type that right in the search box and it'll pull them all up. But once you see the program that you desire to learn more about, you will click on the name of the program to see more details. So in this example, it is the Adult Learning and Leadership Program, the EDM program. And this is a very important, this is what everyone here needs to do before applying to TC. You have to ensure you know what is required of you. So this is where not only can you see a link to the program website, but you can see what degree levels are offered. Don't assume that they have a specific degree, like a master's or a doctoral degree. Some programs only have 1 degree, for instance. Some have 4 or 5 degrees. This is where you can see the length of the program in terms of credits. So some programs have 36 credits, some 60, some 95. You'll want to see that here. Very important, you'll want to check the entry terms of your program. Many programs do not have spring, summer, and fall as entry terms. Some programs do, some programs only have 1 entry term that you can apply for. So this is where you'll see that. Deadlines are here. So I've talked at length about deadlines. This is where you can confirm what your deadline is. And supplemental materials can be located here as well. So this is your chance to see for this program we're looking at now. You can see 2 letters of recommendation are required, not 3, but you also need to submit an academic writing sample and an adult learning essay, which will be included in your application. So those are not suggestions. If you see those listed there, those are required by the deadline or you will not be reviewed that year. So very important. So there's an additional information section on your application. This is an opportunity to provide any additional context that you feel would be helpful to aid the admission committee in understanding your application. This can apply to any special circumstances that you want to share, such as interruptions in education or inconsistencies in your education. If you want to share extenuating circumstances that may have impacted your academic history, let's say something including like a medical illness or a significant family-related situation that impacted you in some way and impacted one of your transcripts, for instance, this is the place to share it. You don't have to share it in your statement of purpose. We are separating this place out. This is completely optional. And again, we are an institution that practices a holistic review process for our application. So providing this information can be really helpful for the admission committee to better understand you as an applicant. It prevents the committee from filling in the blanks themselves. So sometimes you want to give them that context so they understand something they're seeing on one of your components of your application. Again, this is completely optional. This should not be used as an opportunity to provide a second statement of purpose or a writing sample that is not appropriate for this section. This should be used solely to provide crucial information that cannot be provided anywhere else in the application. If you are a doctoral applicant, just a few additional things to keep in mind here. You'll really want to familiarize yourself with the faculty because you'll be working directly with them as a doctoral student. So the fit of the faculty and the faculty research is crucial for you to know and understand and be speaking about in your statement of purpose. You'll want to ensure your research interests and goals align with the faculty member you're working with, and you'll really want to mention that within your statement of purpose. Contacting the program, this can very much vary by program at TC. There are some programs that really cannot conduct, the back and forth communication with their volume of applicants. The counseling and clinical PhD programs are examples of those. They really, really want to remain fair and consistent and equitable across the process. So they really prefer that the application process itself, your application, acts as their introduction to you as an applicant. There are other programs that are able to, maybe, for various reasons, are able to respond to emails of their applicants prior to the application process beginning. So if you're unsure, that's where you should always contact your admission liaison first. That's what we're there for, and we can always let you know what's appropriate in regards to your program. Speaking of people that can help you out, some helpful contacts you'll want to keep in mind. Your TC admission liaison, we should really be your first point of contact with any really program specific questions. Your current or former career services center. This is really a place people don't think about often, but they often have free services to their alum, and this is a great place for feedback on your statement of purpose, or if you just have questions about the differences between different career paths, they can really help you out in those areas, often for free if you've attended that institution in the past or currently. The New York State Department of Education, this is if applicable to you, and you need some state certification information, that's the place to go for sure. And the TC Office of Financial Aid, if you have any funding questions about loans, filling out the FAFSA, scholarships at TC, any of that good stuff, then they are the office you should be contacting. They are our colleagues, but we are separate. So they're the ones that can share those really important details with you. And finally, this is a slide that introduces all of the admission liaisons in my office, so you can look to see which one would be working directly with you, depending on your program of interest. And as you can see, I work with counseling and clinical psychology. My colleague David works with educational policy and social analysis, as well as human development programs. Deanna Gregory works with math, science, and technology, as well as curriculum and teaching. Sam Lewis works with health and behavior studies programs. Mina works with biobehavioral sciences, as well as international and transcultural studies. Nicole works with organization and leadership programs. And then finally, arts and humanities. If you're applying to a program in that department, please email ahadmission@tc.columbia.edu. And one of us will be working with you in that regard. So these are the people that can help you with those first points of contact, with those questions that you might have about the program, anything at all, we're there for you. If you have more general questions, if you want to ask for a recording of this session or for the recording of the session earlier today for international students specifically, then you'll want to reach out to our general inbox, which is admission@tc.columbia.edu, and I'm typing it into the chat right now. Great. And yes, we'll all be here to help you out throughout the process. So I'm just going to move to the last slide so you can see we are on social media. We're out there, showing some fun content of Teachers College, what it's like to be a student here. So definitely follow us if you're interested in interacting in those ways. But I'll leave that up for just some general contact information, and I'm going to get started on some of your questions that have come through the chat as I've been talking for the past 45 minutes. So thank you everyone for being so patient. And let's see what we have here. Okay, let's see. I have some questions about deadlines. So one, I will reiterate, these are received by deadlines, not postmark deadlines. And yes, it can make a huge difference if you apply by the priority deadline of your program. So that means if your program has more than one deadline, you will want to apply by the priority deadline of your program. If you apply, this is for another question, if you apply much earlier than the first deadline of your program, that does not usually mean you'll be reviewed earlier. In all cases that I can think of, we do not begin the review process until after that first deadline has passed. So by submitting your materials a month earlier, please do not start the clock ticking at that point. We will not even open and review applications until after the first deadline has passed. All right, let's see. This is a great question. Is it possible to apply to TC and then a different Columbia program outside of TC? Yes, you absolutely can do that. So you can only apply to one program at Teachers College, But as you all know, we have many Columbia graduate institutions. So if you wanted to apply to one program at TC and another program at one of the other Columbia grad schools, that is certainly acceptable. You can definitely do that. Would admissions be interested in hearing about extracurriculars such as club memberships? This can certainly be important. It really depends on the applicant. If you are someone maybe coming straight out of undergrad, you haven't really had professional experience yet, that might be a big part of your trajectory at that point. Or if it's very relevant to the program you're applying to, like if you're applying to a psychology program and you were the president of a psychology club, then that's certainly something that would be important for us to know. If it's showing a leadership quality in you, if you have, had a leadership role in a student organization, or if the student organization was related to community service, social justice, all of those things that we're so passionate about. Those are examples of reasons you might want to include student club memberships. But if it doesn't really relate too much to any of those areas, or if you've been out of school for a long time, it's probably less relevant at this point in your life. If you have studied at an institution that you left, we do need to still see the transcript. So any coursework that you've received credit for, we do require the transcript. Do we need a course-by-course evaluation for study abroad? Really good question. No. The only time students would need a course-by-course evaluation would be if they completed a degree outside of the United States. If you've, for study abroad, often it's a semester or two. So as long as you didn't complete a degree outside of the United States, we will accept a transcript from that institution, even if it's an institution in Italy, for instance. Yes, if you're seeing that your program is fall only entry, that means you can only start a fall application. You won't even see your program listed on a summer or a spring application, and you can only begin classes during that term. So fall programs begin next September 2023. We do not require AP classes, like we don't require high school transcripts. But if you took classes when you were in high school that were through a post-secondary institution, we would require the transcript from that institution. So just taking an AP class through your high school, we don't need to see that transcript because that would be a high school transcript. But if you were in high school and you took a couple classes through a local university, like Syracuse University, I know does that, we would need to see your Syracuse University transcript because that was a post-secondary institution that you were taking classes at. There's some questions here about supplemental applications. How can we see what's on them? The application for 2023 is actually currently open. So just simply by starting your application, you'll be asked what program you're applying to, and you'll choose it from the drop-down menu, and then you will see the application itself will populate all the requirements in terms of the supplemental essays, for instance. So you can read what the essay questions are right there on the application that's live right now. If you haven't been in school for a while, can you supplement an education letter or a letter of recommendation for a professional letter of recommendation? So yes, you do not have to submit an academic reference if you've been out of school for a while or if it doesn't make sense at this point, unless your program has a different requirement listed on the program search page. So that page that I showed you all where you could see your deadlines, your supplemental requirements, that's also where you would see a note if they require a specific type of letter of recommendation. And if for some reason you don't feel you can get something that's listed there as a requirement, that's a good time to reach out to your admission liaison and see if there's any options there. Can our undergrad institution send our transcript directly to Columbia? So I'm glad this question was worded this way. Whenever you're having something sent to us, make sure it comes to Teachers College. If you simply, and I don't know if that's what this person meant, they might have absolutely meant Teachers College, but if you have anything sent to Columbia University, that includes like GRE scores, transcripts, it will not ever come to our office. This is a huge community of many, many graduate schools. So it has to come to Teachers College for us to receive it. And again, our address is on our FAQ section of the website, where you can email admission@tc.edu to get that address clarified. But make sure they're always coming to Teachers College. And yes, your institution can definitely send transcripts directly to us. That would be considered official. Yes, when I say you can only apply for one program at a time, that means you can only submit one application at a time for one program. So you can never have multiple applications submitted to TC programs. This is also a great question. During the pandemic, we know a lot of schools offered courses that were credit, no credit, where there wasn't a letter grade ever, rewarded or awarded, I should say. We absolutely understand that. So that would be a case where we would see that on the transcript, and likely it would be on the key. That's why we ask for the key. And we would understand that your credit or no credit, pass, fail, however it's listed, would be like the most information we could get. We might reach out to ask you about that, to clarify it, to make sure we're understanding it correctly. But that would be a case where obviously we would not, jeopardize the student because of that situation. We absolutely understand there's cases where letter grades were not awarded simply. Once you submit your application, you will see a large checklist, including all of those external components, like your letters of recommendation, your transcripts, and you'll see green check marks for anything we've received and big red X's for anything we're still waiting on. So that'll really help you understand where you are in the process, what you're still missing, what recommender you might want to touch base with if they still haven't submitted, what transcript never got to us in the mail. But you will only see that after you submit your application. So, if you ever need one of us in my office to check on that for you, we certainly can, towards your deadline. It would be a little early now, 3 months before your deadline, but we're welcome to, help you understand what we're still missing on our end. That would be a perfect time to email admission@tc.columbia.edu. Can your recommender send in your recommendation letters after you have submitted your application if it is before the deadline? Great question. Yes. As long as the letters of recommendation are submitted before the deadline, we will accept them and your application will not be late. So you can submit your application first and they can submit their letters after that, but all of that needs to happen before your deadline. Somebody asked, I mentioned that you can only apply to one program. If you're interested in both a PhD and a master's program in the same program, like same field, would that be considered two different programs? Yes. So that includes degrees. If you're interested in a doctoral degree and a master's degree, you do have to choose which one you're applying to. You cannot apply to both. The financial aid email, I got a request to submit it in the chat. So great, I'm glad you asked. There it is, it's financialaid@tc.columbia.edu. If you're unsure about what program is best for you, I would recommend emailing our general admission account, and give us as much context as you can about your interests. Like, are you you know, kind of between two different teacher programs, like where are you? Because we have over 100 programs. So we'll need to know a bit more about what your goals are and what you're kind of looking for. And if you are between a couple programs, what are they? And then we can help you from there and we'll direct you to the right people. To find out the specific research that's done by faculty in your program, I recommend reading their bio as a great place to start. So go to the TC website. Each program has their own website and should have their own faculty bios. And often you can also kind of Google them a little bit. Many times faculty have their own websites and you can learn more there. PhD programs vary on length. The average number of years can be anywhere from 4 to 7 years, 7 being the maximum you're allowed to be in the program. Are there specific information sessions for specific programs? Great question. This varies by program as well. Many of them do have program-specific sessions, so keep an eye on, well, 2 things I recommend. Keep an eye on our events page because we are often updating it and adding new events, virtual and in person, that'll be happening. But make sure you're on our email list. If you go on our admission website, and scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see a little box that says request more information. And simply by adding your name there and choosing your program of interest on the drop-down menu, submit that, you will then receive invites, specifically invitations to any program-specific things that might be happening in your field. So you'll know ahead of time, hey, there's an open house coming up for psychology programs, or there's a program-specific session for the TESOL program. So that's the best way to kind of keep on top of that. Somebody mentioned reaching out to faculty is important. I want to state again, this varies by program. So there's very specific programs that actually do not recommend applicants reach out to them first, not because they don't want to talk to everyone, but because they receive a huge volume of requests for that kind of communication. And they would rather keep everything fair and equitable by waiting and allowing the application process itself to be their introduction to their applicants through the application materials that everyone submitted. So the best thing to do is email admission@tc.columbia.edu. Let us know your specific program of interest, and we'll let you know if you should or should not reach out directly to the faculty members in your program. Interviews vary by program. So many programs do not have interviews. Many programs do. So most PhD programs do have an interview. You would likely be contacted via email to schedule one. And that would be, you know, much after the deadline, I would say. And if the deadline is December 1st, you would likely be contacted in, I don't know, at least a couple of weeks after the deadline, maybe even all the way up to the end of January. It really varies by program. So that's why you just want to keep checking your email regularly so that if we're trying to get a hold of you, we can. All right, and I know we are almost 10 minutes over. I'm just doing my best to answer more questions in this time. So if you have to hop off, no problem. I'm going to have to hop off in just a moment as well. But I am just going to see if there's maybe 1 or 2 last questions that can help everyone. Somebody has requested the link to the program search page. Let me actually see if I can go back to it. There it is. So that is the page where you can see all the different deadlines for each program. And here's the shortcut to that page in the chat. There's a lot of program-specific questions in here that I'm seeing. So this is a perfect, like if you have a very specific question for your program's application process, definitely reach out to your admission liaison to see if they can provide some light. Some of them are questions in my programs. I can definitely help you out, but just to make sure we're kind of remaining consistent across the board here for everyone's benefit, I'm going to ask you to reach out with any program specific questions since we're kind of at the end of time right now. But let me see if there's any last general question I can grab really quickly. There was a question about the GRE. We do require it for some programs. Many programs do not require it. So that's a great example of making sure you know and understand if your program requires the GRE before going through the trouble of taking it. Scholarship information, again, that's a great question for the Office of Financial Aid. For anyone that wants to be considered for scholarships, you will be asked on your application, would you like to be considered? You will check off yes, and then a little bit more will populate on that page that you will fill out. And you definitely want to apply by the priority deadline to be considered for any scholarship. All right, and with that being said, it looks like I've answered a lot of the general questions, so I'm hoping I was able to help. I do know there's literally hundreds of you in here, so I do know I haven't been able to answer every question, and I apologize for that, but it has been a pleasure spending this time with you all today. I hope you've enjoyed the session. I hope it helped you in framing, what you're thinking about as you're applying to TC. Again, we are rooting for you, so please loop us in. Let us know how we can help answer your questions and support you during this process. And I wish you all luck on your application, and I wish you the very best. I hope you have wonderful days or evenings. All right, thank you all so much. Have a great one.